Hey there, it's Lenny McGill with the GlockStore Performance and Custom Shop right here in the Nashville studios today, and we're going to talk about a part that I've been working on for a long time. It's the Gen 5 Extended Slide Stop. And I tell you what, before COVID, back in 2020, they were readily available from Glock, the Extended Slide Stop for a Gen 5. Now, the slide stop, not to be confused with a slide lock, is actually known as the slide release as well. That's the slide stop right there. Slide lock, also slide takedown lever, should I say, is right there. So there's really two parts, and you know, oftentimes people interchange those names: slide lock, slide stop. I've done it a million times. The slide stop is what we're talking about. The extended version before COVID was readily available from Glock. After COVID, all of a sudden they just dried up and they're not available. And you know, it's a really important item because it helps you manage the gun better. So I'm going to show you why it's important, and then I'm going to show you the part that we developed because we couldn't get them from Glock, and so we said, hey, well, let's make our own, and we did, and it's even better than the factory. Because we started out to make it better, and that's really the key factor here. So first of all, here's a Glock 19 Gen 5, okay? Gonna drop the magazine, gonna look inside, make sure it's unloaded. It is. I'm gonna go ahead and pull the gun or the trigger in a safe direction, you know, being aware that there's no ammunition on the room, there's no ammunition on the table. I'm not gonna inadvertently load this thing, put the magazine away, go ahead and close that up, and now really we're just working with the gun. This is the part, this is the raw part. I didn't colorize it so you could see it. It is an extended version. And what's extended is this little tab right here versus what's on the gun right there. So you'll notice how it sits in here. Also notice that the hole right here is going to intersect with the trigger pin, which is right there. So the part kind of sits in right in this spot like that, if that makes sense. So to install this part, the first thing you want to do is make sure the gun's empty, right? And then take the slide off. And so we're going to do that by wrapping our hand up on the top here and pull back the slide just about 1/4 of an inch, just to release pressure off of the slide lock. And then I'm down on the takedown lever. I'm going to go on both sides of this, and I'm going to pull down on that lever. It's spring loaded. Pull down, hold it down, and then walk the slide off of the frame. Boom. Now, it's important that you don't let the slide just fall, because it could fall and damage the nose ring, or you know, get scuffed up, and you don't want that to happen. So here's the slide. We're really working with the lower part of this thing, and so I'll just put the slide off the side. I've got a one pin, the trigger pin, that I've got to manipulate and get out. But before I do that, let's go ahead and look at the part and see what we're going to replace and why we're going to replace it. You'll notice this is what we're looking for right here, the slide stop. It's kind of spring loaded. It's the device that actually holds the slide back on the last shot. And it does that by this little tab right here that intersects with the follower in the magazine. Okay, the follower has a little ledge on it. I don't know if you can see that, but it's right there, a little flat ledge. So when I stick the magazine in here, you're going to notice that the follower is going to intersect with that ledge, and it's going to lift up the slide stop. And that's what catches the slide. Now, the reason it's called a slide release is because you come up here with your thumb and you sweep down and it releases the slide. See how I push down, how it's going there? Now, the Gen 5 version is ambidextrous, which means it works on both sides. That was a new twist for the Gen 5, although the Gen 3s are always on the left side of the gun. You manipulate it with your thumb on the left side of the gun if you're right-handed. A lot of lefties, when they would be here, they would actually learn how to do it with their index finger. All right, and that was their trigger finger, actually. But Glock, for the military contracts, they wanted to make it ambidextrous, and this is one of the things that they did with the Gen 5 is they made a Gen 5 slide stop. And you can manipulate it both sides. Now, what's interesting about this, it's really important to keep this in mind, is that a lot of the holsters don't like the fact that it's ambidextrous, and so a lot of holsters will not accommodate. A lot of the older holsters in particular, a lot of the newer holsters are keeping into now account that the fact that the Gen 5 is ambidextrous with the slide stop. But a lot of the older holsters, especially some of the law enforcement holsters, would not accept the gun because that got in the way, kind of sticks out a little bit. And the holsters are tight, and they're designed to be tight. So if you have an older holster, you know, I'm going to tell you this real quick. You can actually just buzz this thing off with a Dremel and cut it off on the other side if you're right-handed, right? And cut it off, and it's not going to interfere or affect the function whatsoever. And then it won't be ambidextrous anymore. However, it'll still fit in your holster. That's just a little trick. You know, a lot of people are thinking, oh, I got to buy another, you know, $200 holsters. A lot of these law enforcement holsters are very expensive. But if you don't want to do that, and you can actually, like I said, just buzz that off, and it's still going to work fine. So we'll talk about that as we go ahead and install this thing. So a couple things to think about again is we see that the slide stop is intersecting with the follower. With that there's a little ledge on this follower itself, and there's also a little flat spot on the slide stop right here that intersects with that follower. And that's, like I said, what locks it back on the last round. So then when you drop your magazine, it comes back down. If you put a fully loaded magazine in, you already have a round in the chamber, you just go ahead and keep on shooting. If the gun is totally empty, you drop your magazine, put another round in, and you got to rack the slide and then go. All right, so a lot of competition shooters will manage that before they get to the slide locks position because they don't want to have to waste the time actually racking the slide. But here we go. Let's go ahead for the disassembly. First thing I want to do is grab a punch out of my handy dandy little punch set that we sell tons of because it really makes a big difference. So we're going to grab just the, I believe this is the 3/32 inch punch, which it is. And this is the one that you're going to use with a Glock. So I'm going to put it right on top of this trigger pin. Now there's, when they're brand new, when the guns are brand new, sometimes they're very difficult to get the trigger pin out of there. And there's a secret to this. The secret is to manipulate the slide stop because the pin goes through the hole and it captures the slide stop, and the slide stop captures the pin. And sometimes there's a little ridge, you know, not sometimes, there is a ridge in there, and sometimes the ridge gets really locked into place on the pin into the slide stop. And because of that, you can pound it on all you want, it's not going to come out. So sometimes you have to get in there and just push this thing around a little bit because there's a little bit of play. And so by pushing it around, all of a sudden you get on top of this and actually push this right out. Let me grab this other pin, this other punch a little larger, and this will make it a little easier. I'm going to put the punch on top of the pin. You can see I've got just a painter's tape a roll here, a little donut that I'm going to actually push the pin into. I'm going to get on top of this. Now, you know, it is tight, and so you just got to put some muscle on top of it. And sometimes it comes right out, and sometimes it doesn't. Let's see if I bring it a little closer to me and get over here. And I can show you that I'm going to manipulate this at the same time. Get my punch on top of this guy. And I know it's going to come out because I got it out earlier. Okay, come on now. There you go. So I lifted it up and it came out a little bit, and then I'm going to push it out some more. Boom. And there it is. Okay, so there's your pin. And let me show you what I'm talking about here. There's the ridges now. If you get in here close, you'll see these little ridges right here. And there's two of them, and they are going to go ahead and intersect just like that with the slide stop. And you can see you can kind of lock it up on those ridges. So all you have to do is kind of manipulate it a little bit. There's a little bit of play, and then it'll come out. All right, it's designed to be tight, so don't be worried that it is tight. But if you have trouble, you can kind of beat it on with a hammer. But be aware that you can actually bend this thing if you get too aggressive with a hammer. So always play with that slide stop a little bit as you're pushing on that pin. Next thing coming out is the locking block. And this is all you have to really take out, these two items, the pin and the locking block itself. I got to take the locking block all the way out, and you have to pry it out with a punch. Once it comes out, you're going to notice the other thing too is it has holes in it as well. So this whole device gets captured like this with that pin. And that's what it kind of looks like. All right, inside the gun. And here comes the factory part. Now I just go ahead and pull out the factory non-extended. And so you're going to see the difference here and what we're talking about between the factory standard and the new GlockStore, the GS extended slide stop. All right, that extension now is going to enable you to manipulate the slide stop to operate the gun easier. And I'm going to show you why and how and why I think it's so important. Okay, so now that's it. I'm going to just drop the new part in. And again, they're available in different colors. This is, like I said, a raw part, so you can actually see it here in this video because everything's black. I'm going to just drop it straight in. It just goes straight in like so. Boom. And you'll see the holes line up. Okay, perfect. Okay. Now go ahead and take the locking block and drop it in. Boom, right over top. And again, everything looks like it's lined up, and that's really nice. That's perfect. So now I can take my pin and actually just start it by hand and push it in almost all the way. You know, I mean, I can probably push it more, but I'm going to hurt myself. So I'm going to take my hammer with a nylon tip and just tap it in. Okay, now here's something we want to do. We want to just true it up a little bit. And I'm just going to push the pin down just a little bit so it's equidistant on both sides, and that's perfect. And that's what I want, a little bit of spring action. It doesn't spring a lot, but it springs back down to where it's supposed to go. And that's it. That's the installation process. All right? When you put the magazine in now, you may be able to see the interaction a little bit easier. See how the tab on the slide stop intersects with the follower, the ledge on the follower, and you'll notice the spring action. And that's what springs it up. So on the last shot, when it gets locked back by the spring action of the follower pushing up on the slide stop. If you have any issues with that happening, it's not locking back on the last shot, it could be a problem with the follower. Could also be a problem with the tab on the slide stop. So those are things to think about if you're not getting the gun to lock back on the last shot. Doesn't happen much with the Gen 5s. It did happen a bunch with the Gen 3 and 4 because of the the way it's designed and all that. But this one is pretty fail-safe. All right, that's it. Now let me go ahead and pop my upper back on, and then we'll show you a couple things here about what I think about it. Now, so the slide stop, like I said, when you lock back, I'm going to go ahead and lock it back on the last shot here. Let's say empty magazine, bang, locks back, right? So drop your magazine, put a fresh mag in, and then you sweep it down with your thumb. Okay, and I guess I'll do it left-handed so you guys can see it on this side here. Sweep it down with your thumb, like boom. And it'll strip the magazine, strip the round off the magazine and load, and you get ready to go. So you can see how the larger piece is so much easier to manipulate. Boom, boom, because it's just larger. Now, that's important, of course. But in my mind, one of the other features of the extended slide stop is the ability to actually swipe it up so that when I pass the gun to someone, it's easier for me to actually show that it's clear. Boom, here you go. All right? And then I can actually manipulate it down, but boom, here you go. I can push it back up. So I can push it back up, and it's really easy to push back up. One of the things you want to think about is, okay, so I've got an unloaded gun. I'm going to show that it's unloaded. People will say, well, lock it back or show clear. Okay, show clear. One of the best things to do is just to sweep it up. Now you can see that I can actually sweep this up without changing my grip. I can just grab it here with my thumb on this side, boom. So here it's just like that. Just push it straight up because there's so much more meat to it. So we made it a little bit more extended so that people with smaller hands could also operate it, but it doesn't interfere with people with larger hands. Perfect, right? And that's the idea. So the goal or the key in my mind behind this is not only is it easier to push down, but it's also easier to lock back. And I think that's a very important feature for safety, because when you are involved with firearms and you're passing them around to people, that's really one of the nice things to do. One of the etiquette things to do is to actually lock back the slide. And so when you hand it to someone, everybody knows it's empty. Because when you hand me a gun, no matter what, I'm going to double check it. I'm going to look inside. But if you hand it to me when it's locked back, I already know it's already empty. So I can look at it, kind of look at it. Okay, fine. Yeah, it's good. I don't have to really do too much to it. But again, anytime I pick a gun up, boom, I'm going to double check it. But if it's locked back, I can look at it and say, oh yeah, it's empty. I already know. I don't have to double check it. Okay, yeah, I'm still going to look at it. I'm going to make sure that there's no rounds around. I know there's no magazine. I know there's no rounds inside the chamber. But I can actually look at it without having to manipulate the slide. But I think that's a real good habit. I want you to think about every time you touch a gun, you know exactly the status. Loaded, unloaded, always treat it as it's loaded, but you want to know exactly. So you want to peek inside. Okay, it's unloaded. That's good. Pull the trigger in a safe direction. Never point at anything or anybody that you don't want to shoot. All right, no matter if it's loaded or not. So, but again, this extended slide stop for the Gen 5, it's been a long time coming. A lot of customers are waiting for it, and I really appreciate your patience. We finally got it together. It took years to get the fact that hey, Glock's not selling them. Let me go ahead and develop a tool. Let me refine that tool. Let me refine the design, and I finally did, and I'm loving it. So they're now available, and we're going to be shipping them, as we speak. So thank you for your patience. Thanks for watching. This is one of those extended controls that help you manage the gun better. All right, and that's just like all the other things, the extended slide lock, the takedown lever, the extended magazine release button, all those things help you manage the gun or operate the gun better. So the extended control concept is really sound in my mind because if you are managing the gun better, if you're able to operate better, you're going to be safer. And that's #1 priority. My name is Lenny McGill. This, of course, is the Glock Store. If you like what you see, we've got a lot more videos. There's all kinds of cool stuff happening with Glock, and we are the #1 source in the world for Glock parts and accessories. So subscribe, check us out on Rumble, and check out our next video. Thanks for watching. I'll see you next time.